Town of Harwich website. We're going to start with a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we proceed with the main agenda, we're going to take a moment of silence. I'm going to let Amy talk briefly about John Rossetti.
So I'd like to have a moment of silence tonight to start our meeting in memory of late Commissioner John Rossetti. John was a member of this commission from about 2012 to 2015 or 2016. He got on the board wanting to really make a difference with some of our land management efforts, which he did. And he didn't have a whole lot of background with the wetlands aspect, but he took his time, he got to learn it. He was a really valuable, kind of impartial member of our commission, and I just wanted to take the time out and thank him and his family for that. A fond memory I always had of John is John came here from off Cape, and John picked his house because it was at one of the highest points in Harwich. And we would always go out to these low-lying properties because the properties that we review are low-lying or on coastal banks. You know, they're in precarious locations. And John and I would always banter back and forth, and I would always ask John, be like, hey, John, when you like this property, it's, 5 feet from the salt marsh, and he'd go, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. You couldn't pay me. So John was always very impartial and had a great sense of humor, so I'd like to just take a moment and honor him.
Okay, thank you. So the first item on our agenda tonight is a presentation from Christine Flynn, Town Planner, on the draft revision of the Harwich Open Space and Recreation Plan. Christine.
Thank you. I'm Christine Flynn. I'm the town planner, and here with me on the committee and part of the local the local planning committee is Margot Fenn. We're just giving a brief update tonight. And so the town, as you may or may not know, is heavily involved in updating its 10-year local comprehensive plan. And as part of that, the town also took efforts to update its open space and recreation plan, housing production plan, and its hazard mitigation plan. And for the 2025 open space and recreation plan, Harwich, the plan really prioritizes all of the values that the town wishes to secure in terms of preservation and protection of natural resources, open space, and providing recreational opportunities for all residents and visitors to the town of Harwich, in addition to ensuring that there's adequate access for all physical levels of mobility. In part of the open space and recreation plan, it's a 5-year plan that has to meet certain criteria as directed by the Division of Conservation at the state level. And so there are very specific parameters that the plan has to include in terms of a very detailed update of the town's inventory of all of its open space and conservation properties. And that also includes properties that are not owned by the town, but also by private nonprofits like the Harwich Conservation Trust. And so this year we did a very thorough update of those inventories by each town department, in addition to any collaborative efforts that the town and other private nonprofit conservation agencies have that we've participated in. Other sections of the plan include updates in terms of goals and objectives and strategies. So we are finalizing that section of the plan. And we have really refocused on the importance of public and private partnerships, looking at public policies in terms of how the town can improve some of its efforts in terms of regulatory processes for planning and land use development, and really considering any impacts to open space and our natural resources. And so the plan really highlights some of the good land management opportunities, and we welcome any comments that you have, and we also look for your support once the plan has been finalized and we're ready to submit the plan to the state. I also want to give a great deal of credit. When I started, this plan was already underway, and I want to give credit to Amy Yuskowski, as well as some of the other town departments, including Lynn Cooper, the DPW director, John Rendon, the harbor master, Eric Beebe, the Parks and Recreation director, Don Yanuzzi, the natural resource director, and of course Margot Fenn and Mike Locke, who are also on the committee as well. So I didn't know if there were any questions, or if anyone, Margot, if you had anything else to add relative to the plan.
Just a couple of comments. As Christine said, we started this project as part of the local comprehensive plan update, and we originally thought that it would be a pretty easy thing to do. We were just updating an existing plan, but as we started digging into it, and Amy can certainly attest to this, we realized that it really hasn't been thoroughly updated since it was originally written back in the 1990s. And so much has happened in town since that time. So much land has been protected, so much land has been developed, and all kinds of information in it needed to be updated and added to. So we had to do a much more thorough review than we thought, and it's taken longer than we thought it was going to. The group of all these department heads that have jurisdiction over the various parts of this it was a great group, and Amy and Christine did a great job of facilitating this. We did have a consultant working with us on the project, and they did the writing, but we did a lot of editing because, you know, somebody coming from outside town doesn't have the local knowledge to be able to know all the things that they need to know. I stood on the Real Estate and Open Space Committee, and we took the plan to that committee in our last meeting, which was a couple of weeks ago, and got some very good feedback from that group, particularly the chairman of the committee, Dave Callahan. And so we're hoping to get the finishing touches put on this thing, and to get, as Amy said, Christine said, your support for this, because it needs to be submitted to the state. And one of the major motivations for doing this is that it gives us, if we have an approved plan, it gives us access to state funds for lots of different natural resource and open space acquisitions. So it's important that we have it, because we can't access those funds without it. So I'd just like to thank you guys. Michael Locke, also from the Harwich Conservation Trust, put a lot of time in on this, and his input was very useful. So, thanks.
Thank you. Amy, do you have anything to?
It was a wonderful collaborative effort. Christine did a wonderful job kind of herding the cats, as I would say. You have a lot of people in a lot of different locations putting this thing together, all who have 15 other things to be doing at any given time. So it was a huge process, and like Margot said, we could have done a bare bones job and just did a quick update over the last few years, but that wouldn't even have been that possible, because we've accomplished so much in the past 5 to 7 years since the last minor edit. So it really was deserving of a complete rewrite. And we depend heavily on state land grant funds. So when the town purchases a property or a conservation restriction on the property, if we have an open space and rec plan in place, we are eligible for up to 50%, up to $400,000 or $500,000 as a cap. And we've been successful in, I don't want to like jinx us, but in almost 100% of the times that we've applied, we've been successful at getting it. So this document is critical, and it shows folks that we're, not only keeping tabs, but looking forward on our open space and recreational assets for the town. So especially on the priorities shifted a little bit since the earlier times. If you have any input on if you think we're on the right track with the goals and objectives, we'd love to hear it. If you have any suggestions, we'd love to hear those too.
Thank you. Wayne?
I don't have anything.
Viv?
Kudos. I can't believe how comprehensive and thorough and spot on it is. I read it earlier today, and I just was kind of blown away. So,
Thank you.
yay for you guys. I don't have anything else to say.
Sophia?
I have no feedback, but thank you so much for your hard work on it.
I regret to say I've not had a chance to read the whole thing through, and as a result, I have a couple questions that might be answered in there. And there are about a couple of hot-button issues in town. One is the issue of clear cutting, and there have been comments made publicly in town about an objection to the practice of some developers just clear cutting lots, and I'm wondering whether the plan has anything to say about that. And just the other one, a similar issue, is people also get upset maybe or concerned about just any kind of tree removal. And again, I'm wondering whether this document addresses either one of those issues in any way.
You want me to jump in here? The local comprehensive plan is going to address those issues. We're hard at work on finalizing that as well. And there's some quite specific recommendations in that about pursuing a bylaw or amendments to existing bylaws to try to address the issue of clear cutting, and also recommending that we reinstate the position of tree warden in the town and have a better process for taking care of the trees that we have. So I'm not sure if it's directly addressed in the open space plan, but it definitely is addressed in the local comprehensive plan.
It is, from a public policy perspective, it is mentioned in terms of areas for improvement, particularly for the planning board, as we review subdivision regulations that fall within our jurisdiction, and how we can maybe add that to some of the requirements that we expect in terms of the plans that we receive for subdivision under the subdivision control law. So it's referenced in here. I think going forward, it will entail a larger discussion on how best to approach that issue, and perhaps what other towns have done, and are there any best practices that we can learn from.
So does state law or regulations have anything to say about how much freedom towns have to control those things? Specifically, the extent to which lots are cleared during development, or the extent to which a town controls what trees can be cut down and where?
Zoning bylaws and subdivision rules can set out requirements like that, like defining what they call a building envelope on a lot, which says that, you know, the remainder of it shall remain undisturbed, and you have this much area within which to locate your buildings. That's particularly used in cluster subdivisions because there's open space set aside in a cluster, and you want to make sure that the open space that's set aside is actually meaningful, not just, you know, a little perimeter around the edge of the lot. So that's, I mean, there's a lot of precedent for doing it in other communities, and I think it is. In fact, there are probably other communities on the Cape that are doing it right now.
And finally, sort of along those lines, does the comprehensive plan or the open space and recreation plan address specifically the establishment of wild and protection of wildlife corridors and areas to protect local flora and fauna and guard against their demise?
Yeah.
Yes, I think both plans have addressed some of the natural open space in our natural resources. So there are action items that we've identified to help preserve what's remaining within town.
Yeah, I should add too that we had quite a robust public outreach process for the local comprehensive plan, which included a survey, and we got more than 1,000 survey responses on this. And that was an issue that came up repeatedly. And so the committee took that seriously and tried to incorporate some recommendations about it.
Yes, I think minimizing any fragmentation of open space or natural habitat has been identified as a priority in the local comprehensive plan.
Great, thank you. Do we have any more questions from the commission? Comments? Anyone in the room have questions or comments? Anyone online? Seems not. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for
Excellent
your
work.
time.
Thanks
We
for your
appreciate your
time.
support.
So next, we have a request for a change in plans for 49 Saquatucket Bluffs Road, map 8, parcel G1-4, SE 32-2514 for mitigation plantings, walkway, replacing existing fence, and adding a fence to the west side of the property.
Sounds like a lot, but it's not. Rob Calderaro with Bohemian Savory de Silva, representing our clients at 49 Saquatucket Bluff.
Thank you.
Have you had a chance to review the plans as far as the change goes?
Which is this. Yeah. Well,
Yeah, so
I think we have, but it would be good for
Be
you to
happy
just
to
walk us through.
Talk about it, yeah, sure. Would be the east side of the property, standing at the beach and looking at the house to the right. There is an existing stockade fence. We are proposing to remove that and replace it with a similar in height with a additional 6-inch space below, which does not exist at this point. So I think that is an upgrade from the existing condition. On the opposite side, the next door neighbor has a mesh fence that runs along the property line and then turns into a white picket fence that goes to the water. We'd like to, in front of, I might add, all of these changes are outside the 50-foot buffer. They're within the 50 to 100. In this case, on the left-hand side, we would like to, in front of this mesh fence, install a similar 42-inch high, 6-inch gap fence there as well. Both are depicted on the plan. And then there's one other small plan change. There is a wood storage bin that is on the backside of our pavilion in the plan, and our client has requested that there be a small pea-stone walkway that gives them access to that without stepping all over the plantings that are being proposed and installed at this time. In response to that, we have two, what were not qualified as mitigation planting areas. Now we are calling them mitigation, and changing them to beach grass. They're on either side of the fire pit there. I think square footage wise, we're going from a 50-foot pea stone area and supplying 150 square feet of additional mitigation. Any questions?
Well, let's start with Amy.
Overall, it's a benefit. It's a really small amount of work, but because especially the part of the Pea Stone walkway is within the 0 to 50, had to kind of come back to you guys to take a look at even the Pea Stone walkways now?
Even the pea stone walkway is outside the 0 to
Okay,
50.
great.
It's all outside the 0 to 50.
Wonderful. But there was a few changes, so we thought it best to come from the commission for the plan change. The native planting, okay, there were kind of beds that were off the back of the house that are now being converted to mitigation plantings. They were in kind of bed areas, and now it's just gonna be contiguous with the rest of the mitigation planting there. I did just wanna mention, I think we had a little email back and forth with Julie Kavanaugh, just to make sure that you installed the other mitigation plantings, within that beach grass area.
I brought
this-
Wilkinson
this spring.
along as well to add
Yeah.
any additional comments.
So just this spring for a
Steve.
little diversity.
Sure.
This project is pretty cool, if you get a chance to go out to it. It's still in construction phase, so just be careful. But, in the back of the house, off the patio and deck area, there is no lawn whatsoever anymore, on this property. It goes right into beach grass and, other type of dune type species. So the walkway will also help channelize and keep people on a certain path and not in those areas. So the entire rear of this property is now going to be a native dune-like habitat back
From the
there.
front of the house
Yeah.
all the way
Right, the
back.
side, right,
Yeah.
from the sides
So
back.
the
It's
client
pretty
is really
cool.
interested in having kind of the effect of the dunes as the backyard, of the front yard being outside.
Right.
Your jurisdiction is more the
Traditional,
formal
yeah.
plantings and such, so.
And Steve LeBranch from Wilkinson Ecological. All the plants that were to go in that area are in. We
Okay.
pushed them more seaward
Yep.
because it was still disturbed there, and we wanted to get them in before it got too cold,
Right.
because we could plant the beach grass anytime. So they're all in there. They're a little bit more seaward than they were, but yeah, it's looking good.
Yeah, we can look at it in the spring.
Yep.
Yes, especially compared to the juxtaposition of the two houses on either side, which both have lawn
All
directly
the way up. yeah.
to the bank, so it's kind of the diamond in the rough, so to speak.
Well, maybe those people will see how beautiful this is and want to do the same thing. So
I do think it's gonna be a beautiful project, really.
It's neat.
Yeah.
So I'd recommend approval of plan change for these couple minor things.
Okay. Sophia?
I have no questions. Looks good. Thank you.
Good.
No questions?
Sounds good to me. I have no questions either. Anything from the public? Hearing none. We can entertain a motion.
We'll make a motion for the change of plans for 49 Saquotucket Bluffs Road, map 8, parcel G1-4, SE number 32-2514.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 4-0.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay warm. Have a good night.
Yes. Okay. What is- Okay. There we go. Next, we have a notice of intent for 19 Walker Woods Drive, map 94, parcel A5 for Vista pruning and the pond access path. This has been continued from our January 8, 2025 meeting. Yes, sir.
Hello, Mike Tanis, Blue Flax Design. Based on the last hearing, we made a few changes, subbing out red maple and replacing it with white oak. And we were waiting for a DEP number, which I believe we have now.
Have it.
So I'm here to answer any questions.
You folks may not have the most up-to-date on the planting plan. I do. That substituted the maple out. And that's all we were waiting for. So we talked about the corridors and the methodology behind their pruning at the last meeting. You're gonna have a walkway that kind of meanders through. Not gonna have any formal base to the walkway, just gonna be dirt.
That's correct.
Kayak racks outside the 50-foot buffer. So I'm recommending approval, and because we were kind of just waiting for these little formalities, I did prep and order draft orders of conditions for you, which were in your Dropbox as well as on your table. You could, if you saw fit, vote to approve and issue the order simultaneously.
Okay, thank you. Wayne,
I don't have anything, John.
Vivian,
No questions, got my pen ready.
Nothing for me.
Sophia, I have nothing either. Again, any comments from the public? I don't hear any, so we could do a motion. So let's just talk about, we could have a motion just to approve the notice of intent, or we could include,
Make a motion to close the public hearing, approve the project, and issue the order of conditions. You could just say that.
That.
so moved by Vivian. Second,
Second.
has to come out of your mouth.
That's fine.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4-0.
I'll
All
see your
set?
signature pages later, so
Thank you.
just remind me.
Okay, now we have notice of intent for 0 Hiawatha Road, map 6, parcel T1, for a stone revetment replacement. This has also been continued from our January 8, 2025 meeting. Do we have someone here representing this?
If not, I can speak to it. It's very simple.
Okay.
I think at the last meeting, we said if it was only the DEP number, that they didn't necessarily have to come. So this was a stone revetment replacement. This is kind of the public access path to the staircase down the beach. Both revetments and bulkheads on either side are being replaced. This is to bridge that gap. This one is starting to fail and undermine and is in need of replacement. So we were just waiting for the DEP file number, and now we have it. So I would recommend that you approve the project and issue the order of conditions, which I have prepped for you.
Okay, any comments from commissioners or questions? From the public? Okay, I think we should proceed with this again. I'll move that we approve the notice of intent, what?
I was gonna say second, but finish.
Yeah, I should finish. For 0 Hiawatha Road, map 6, parcel T1 for stone revetment replacement.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0. Next is a notice of intent for 11 River Bend Road, map 1, parcel G1-9. I'm afraid we're gonna have to continue this once more because we don't have quorum. We don't have a voting quorum for this issue because one of our members has not been on the commission long enough, and they were not present for the initial hearings on this. So
Another member who is sick, who is eligible is sick tonight.
Right.
So February 19th is the continuance date.
So I'll move to continue 11 Riverbend Road, map 1, parcel G1-9 to
February 19th.
February 19.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0. Next, we have a notice of intent for 2173 Route 28, head of the Bay Road, map 15, parcel S1-3 for coastal bank vegetation restoration.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tabitha Cagle, and this is Steve LaBranch from Wilkinson Ecological Design, representing the applicant. Also, Mike Bose from Ty and Bond is on the screen, and Gary Thulander, the general manager, is also in the audience. So the project before you is a voluntary restoration project located across the coastal bank on both the Round Cove and Pleasant Bay facing sides of the property. And if you look at your restoration plan, since it's a large property, sheet 1 shows Round Cove, and sheet 2 is the Pleasant Bay facing side of the property. And really, the overarching goal of this project is to restore a really robust native plant community across the coastal bank, which will not only provide ecological benefits in and of itself, but will also really help to protect the down gradient resource areas of the salt marsh and the waters of Round Cove and Pleasant Bay. The Round Cove bank in particular is really heavily invaded with Asiatic bittersweet, shrub honeysuckle, and white poplar. And that bittersweet forms a really dense mat across the ground, really smothering almost all the other vegetation and eliminating any ground layer vegetation, which is really what's most effective at holding soils together. There's also some evidence of mild erosion at various points across the bank. And so what we are proposing with this plan is really to remove all invasive and non-native plants and seed a native grass mix over all bare soils, and then replant hundreds of native shrubs and trees. The proposed grass species that will get seeded onto this property are really what are going to do the heavy lifting in terms of helping to stabilize those soils with the very deep fibrous root systems that do that soil retaining so well. And in addition, the native shrubs and trees will really help to diversify and stratify that structure across the bank. The Pleasant Bay facing side is similarly heavily invaded on the more southerly end of the project area, where bittersweet is really dense across the bank. But as you head further north on that project area towards the pavilion and the Great Lawn, that area of the bank underwent a full ecological restoration and mitigation plan in 2013, and that was completed by Wilkinson Ecological. So the proposed activity in that location of the project area is mostly limited to removing small resprouting invasives if they happen to be there, and also reseeding and replanting bare soils where needed. In addition, furthest north on your sheet 2 plan, there's sort of 2 little blobs that are shown that are areas of Japanese knotweed that we are also proposing to remove as part of the plan. They're small to moderate size now, but you probably all know how quickly this plant can overtake areas, so we feel it's best to try to get in there and control it as part of this project. Also, because the bank has been subject to various pruning efforts in the past, we really took a hard look at the trees currently growing on the bank to determine overall tree health and if restorative pruning could be proposed. So we developed a tree pruning protocol that includes some removal and replacement of the most degraded trees on the bank, those that have really been improperly managed by the previous owner over previous years, that have rot or poor growth habits and are not mature canopy trees. We took a look at also those that could benefit from some restorative pruning, and those that would benefit from just a removal of a larger limb where the trees were really top-heavy and growing in this windy location, windy exposed location. In addition, there are a few trees at the top of the bank that are growing really, really close to a number of buildings that are older pitch pines. They're really densely covered in heavy, heavy English ivy, and they're really leaning towards these very small, in some cases growing almost directly on the building or within a foot or two, leaning towards the building. So some of those are proposed for removal as well. Lastly, I just wanted to say that a very similar project, the same project actually, was approved by the commission in 2013 to do the work on the Round Cove facing side of the property. And unfortunately, that project was never started. Since that time, the invasive plants, particularly the bittersweet, have really just gone crazy and gained a really strong foothold in that location. Also, the bank, there was an RDA that came before you in 2003 to do some pruning on the Round Cove bank. But really, the ultimate goal of this project is to restore that native plant community and not have to do those interim pruning steps any longer. The new ownership is really committed to completing this really extensive ecological restoration project. It's probably it's over an acre. It's about 1.25 acres. And with that, I will
Just,
open it.
it was 2023.
Did I say?
The RDA, you said 2003.
Oh, sorry,
That's okay.
2023, yes. And with that, we'll take any questions.
Thank you. Amy?
I'm really glad to see this come back to us. I was there in 2013 when it came forward the first time, and I met the current manager earlier this year, expressed that it would be lovely to see something like that happen here, because the Wapquasit does such a wonderful job in so many ways, and to look at this one piece of the property that hadn't been managed, and it was in need of it, was, I thought, important. So we talked about the importance, from the stability standpoint of the bank, because these invasives, they have a whole lot of canopy to them, but the root system is nothing. And also their other goal of, making sure that they still have views for their buildings. The routine having to prune every single year was a lot of work just to do that. So while you're designing something that's ecologically better in terms of diversity and wildlife, you can also design something that is going to be less maintenance going forward, and less people on the bank at any time to go through this. So in general, I'm very in favor of this. I would like to see just a couple more clumps potentially. I know that you're going a lot you have a great native seed mix on the coastal bank, but there's some areas that are mainly grasses, such as in front of building H and G, and just where there's larger expanses of just grass. And I'm not suggesting putting in really big woody species, because I think having more of a lower growing community is important there for a variety of reasons. But seeing some of that small fragrant sumac, a few more clusters of that sweet fern kind of intermixed in there. But it's a very minor comment that's very easy, straightforward to do. So this is going to take place. You have a kind of a construction protocol or land management plan in your packet. It's going to take place over several years. Invasions like this, they don't get fixed overnight. So they're going to actually. Can you talk a little bit about the phasing?
Sure. So yes, like I said, it's a large project. It's over 1 acre, and the plan is to complete it in 3 phases. So each phase of the process, there'll be a section where the invasive plant removal will take place, and then the seeding and soil stabilizing erosion control blanket will go down. And then the next phase of it, they'll be planting, the regenerative planting in that area, and then the next phase of invasive plant management will commence, and that'll happen over likely, 4 years is probably the extent of the project, 4 to 5 years. So, I mean, it would take place under a typical order of conditions with an extension.
Yep. And that's something that Mr. Thulander and I spoke about when we had a site visit initially, is that the commission's permit is only 3 years. However, if you provide monitoring and you're on task, the commission can and will grant typically extensions, because a project like this could feasibly take 5 years, 4 to 5 years to do.
Yeah.
So, just want you to have that in the back of your mind in terms of expectations too. And this is one that it will look drastically different for a little bit of time until it starts establishing.
All set?
Yep.
Sophia?
Sure, I have 2 quick questions. I see on the plan that there's at least one oak snag labeled. Is that something that you guys are leaving there for habitat, or is that?
Yes, that will stay there as habitat, yep.
Love to see
A
that.
nice snag.
Yeah. My second question was just for my own curiosity. I'm not familiar with the chinkapin oak, and for your keeping the views down, do you happen to know what the size of those are? Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I think in those conditions, they'll probably get up to 15 to 20 feet.
Okay.
The chinkapin oak is similar to a scrub oak
Okay.
type of species. It's just that scrub oak, which we have often used in the past and is also a native species, is just less available now. So we've kind of worked to find another native species, which is a good, not a substitute, but just an acceptable species filling that niche.
Yeah, it looks great.
Thank you. Vivian?
No, I think we had all our questions answered when we met, so thank you. Don't have
Oh.
any-
I don't have anything.
One quick question. Why are scrub oaks unavailable?
Our nursery is, last time we used them, we actually grew them from plugs, and the company we got them from doesn't even have them available. I don't know why they're not available, because they're a great tree.
Yeah.
I actually collected acorns last year, and we're hoping to grow some. But
Thank you. I also have a question about what you're calling the Great Lawn or the Grand Lawn. I forget which it is out front, which is sort of the ceremonial area there overlooking Pleasant Bay, which it's hard to tell this time of year, but that's appears to me to be a very highly manicured area, which I understand why, but I mean, we always impose no fertilizer, no nutrient-containing soil amendments. That's a new twist, but I would like to see that there as well. No herbicides or pesticides. So what is your plan? And that's well within even the 50 if I read the
Right,
plan
but
correctly.
that was never part of our original project on that side, and it's actually, that's under the care of the landscapers that work there. And I don't know if Gary wants to talk about that, but that would be something that would be addressed to them, I think. We don't have anything
It's
to do with the
something we
lawn.
typically, when we see any project that comes in front of the commission, it's typically a condition that gets on there, as it did for the renovations of the other buildings on the Round Cove side, that there wasn't supposed to be any more treatment happening there. So I guess if there is treatment happening there, and I know it's Schumacher who does your landscaping and you folks are doing the restoration, and Schumacher's not here tonight, so if we could find out what their current practices are, and if there's ways that if they are doing practices that the commission does not typically view favorably, if there are ways we can substitute that either with seed mixes that don't require as much, stuff like that. So if we could get that from Schumacher, that would be great, because that is a typical condition that we put on any project. I know this is an overall amazing good project, and we don't want to see anything stand in that way, but just to make you aware, that is a typical condition we put on projects. just trying to get people away from using excess nutrients, especially, I mean, Pleasant Bay is an ACEC. So just being more environmentally conscious wherever we can.
And just to echo Amy, I agree with her, this is an amazing project, and I personally am very happy to see this happening. Just, that's a concern we always have to bring up. Okay, any comments from the public? I don't hear any more from the commission.
We did have a DEP number for this, so you can act on this tonight. I think my comments were fairly minor in terms of the plant addition, a couple plant additions there, as long as the commission's comfortable with that.
I'll move that we approve the notice of intent for 2173 Route 28, head of the Bay Road, map 115, parcel S1-3.
I will second it.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
If we could just have electronic and then physical copies by midweek next week,
Sure.
that would be awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, good evening. So now we have a request for determination of applicability for 0 and 5 Snow Inn Road, map, I think it's map 8, parcel F2, F3, and N4. Do I have that right? The map number was left off here, but I believe it's
Oh, sorry about that.
map 8.
That's okay. Addresses are fine.
Okay, for renovations and additions to existing boathouse and installation of a grinder pump system. Do we have someone here speaking to this?
Yes, can you folks hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. My name is Mike Pimentel. I'm with JC Engineering, and I'm here on behalf of Jack Welch, the owner of the property at 0 and 45 Snow Inn Road. What we are proposing to do and asking for permission from the commission is to take an existing boathouse and renovate it within the same footprint as the boathouse, and then also abandon an existing cesspool that currently services the boathouse and replace it with an E1 grinder pump station that you'll see on the plan as a blue circle that's located on map 8, lot N4. So currently what we have is a boathouse that is currently being used mainly for storage, and the resource areas that are associated with the property is land subject to coastal storm flowage, zone AE, elevation 11. We also have a coastal bank and also a salt marsh. All the work that we're proposing will be located within the land subject to coastal storm flowage and within the buffer zone to the salt marsh and coastal bank. The proposed boathouse, again, is going to be renovated with a new boathouse. It's going to stay within the same footprint as the existing boathouse and lean-to. There's a triangular lean-to that's located on the street side of the boathouse, which will be torn down as part of the project and replaced with 2 small additions that are going to be attached to the boathouse. But again, there are not going to be any lateral additions beyond the limits of the existing structure. We are going to tear down the structure and keep the existing foundation that's currently there and add approximately a 12-inch slab on top of the existing slab that's there now so that we can be flood zone compliant. There is an existing cesspool that's located in the boathouse that we're going to abandon and put in that new grinder pump station that, again, you'll see in a blue circle that's approximately 10 feet away from the Snow Inn Road right-of-way. Tried to maximize the distance of that grinder pump station to the coastal bank as much as possible. So sewage will be proposed to flow out of the boathouse going into this E1 system and then pumped in a northerly direction through a force main to an existing tight tank that's currently servicing the existing building over at 45 Snow Inn Road. All three properties are owned by the same applicant. Applicant owns the map 8 lot F2 where the boathouse sits, and then there's that vacant lot that is adjacent to the boathouse, followed by the property for 45 Snow Inn Road as well. So the owner owns all three lots. He's proposing to utilize the lot so that he can convey the sewage from the boathouse to the existing tight tank. Like I said, we tried to maximize the distance of the grinder pump station to Coastal Bank as much as possible. Unfortunately, due to tight constraints, there really wasn't much area left that we can move the grinder pump station farther away from the Coastal Bank. But in order to protect the bank, we are providing erosion control down gradient from all of the proposed work. And we feel this is a pretty good project to go forward. The existing boathouse it's a pretty old boathouse. I don't know if you folks went out there to see it, but it's a two-story boathouse that just needs a lot of work, needs a new roof. So the owner just wishes to renovate it and keep everything, again, within the confines of the limits of the existing boathouse. We've had discussions with the Board of Health agent as well regarding the project. She's currently on board with the proposed work, but obviously we have to go in front of the Conservation Commission to seek your approval. And then also we need to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals to seek their approval for the construction or the reconstruction of the boathouse. With that, I would take any questions the commission may have.
Thank you. Amy?
Yes, thank you. Mike, on the boathouse on the west side, the proposed upper and lower level storage, what is currently there in that footprint?
There's a lean-to there. There's a triangular lean-to that you'll see in gray, and you can actually get a better view of that lean-to over at the little index map where it says existing boathouse dimensions.
I didn't notice it when we went outside, but thank you.
Yep.
How are you gonna contain the work? You're really right up on top of the property line as well as almost in the water.
Well, yes. I mean, we are going to be providing erosion control along the limits of the work. There's not going to be any work that's going to be done outside the confines of the structure itself. So everything is going to be limited to the boathouse footprint at all times.
What are you proposing as a limit of work?
The limit of work essentially would be the right along the concrete patio that you see there now. Yep. That concrete patio is not going to move. That concrete patio is going to stay in place. So now that I'm looking at this plan, we can actually tweak the erosion control so that the line can actually follow or coincide with the concrete patio and wrap around the existing retaining wall that's located right at the end of the wooden walkway that you see on the plan right before you go on the ramp to the dock.
I guess what I'm asking is what material are you using for limit of work? Are you using construction fence? Are you using silt fence with straw wattles?
Whatever the commission is okay with. I mean, we typically use a straw wattle line, staked into the ground. But we can certainly work with you folks to come up with something that's more acceptable.
Yeah, I guess my only concern is that it's, a lot of debris potentially really close to especially salt marsh and in a windy site, so I'm not sure that just a straw wattle would be sufficient. I mean, it's certainly flat, so we're not worried about erosion, but I'm a little bit more concerned about containment of debris, so that's my point.
Okay, yeah, I mean, we could certainly have the contractor, if it's okay, provide you with a construction protocol that will talk more about, how to confine everything within the limits of the work, if that's acceptable.
That's fine. We'll have a pre-construction meeting anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my only other question is the new building gonna be flood compliant to AE 11?
Yes, it is. The contractor has, the contractor, the architect has provided his architectural plans, which I believe it was included in the packet, that will show that we are proposing flood vents along the perimeter of the foundation to make sure that it is flood zone compliant.
And all your, we don't have a copy of the architecturals, so, and all your utilities will be above flood level?
Correct.
Okay. I have no other questions. I would recommend approval with a -2 and 3.
Okay, thank you. Wayne?
Yeah, it looks pretty simple to me. I'm just curious as to why it's a determination instead of a notice of intent, but right there on the edge of the harbor.
Because it was same footprint. And they weren't changing the foundation, so they're really not doing any more groundwork.
Well, they're gonna be digging the trenches and stuff for the septic and all that stuff in the water main to service the thing. So they're gonna be excavating going on.
Well, there isn't going to be a new water main that's servicing the building. The plan that you see in front of you calls out for that existing water line that currently services the building, that is fed from the existing house over at 45 Snowland Road. So that's not going to change. The only thing that will change, and you're correct, we are going to be putting in a 4-inch PVC pipe right at the, the northwest corner of that addition, and then run it into the grinder pump station.
Well, if you would have rather have seen it as an NOI, I apologize. I think we can still condition it to meet. Going forward, projects like this, I can certainly review through with you guys first.
I think it should be in a way myself, where we've done things that are lesser, and especially in an environment like this right next to the harbor that we require it from. That's my opinion.
Okay. Vivian?
No, I don't really have any questions. I'm curious to see what's gonna where everything's gonna be staged, to your point, but I think it sounds like it's a conversation that you're gonna have anyway, so I don't have anything else to add.
Sophia?
I don't think I have any questions.
Okay, so, I have two concerns. Part of it is just me understanding better. I echo Amy's concern about debris from construction, and, this thing is right on the water, and it's not clear to me, there's a concrete slab seaward from the building, and like Amy said, it's a windy site, and at high tide, the water is up to that, I believe. And how are you going to keep any construction debris from, escaping on the concrete patio there and getting into the harbor? That's an issue, and I think we need much more clear indication of how that's dealt with, not to mention on the north side. But I understand the flood compliance. You said you're going to add 12 inches to the slab. So on the north side of the building, it's labeled a concrete patio. Is that staying at the same elevation, or is that also going to have 12 inches added to it? And if
No, that concrete patio will remain exactly the way it is. It's just that there'll be a small step in going to the boathouse, because we are going to be raising the slab of the boathouse by 12 inches. But the concrete patio itself will remain exactly the same. So, to be flood zone compliant, we need to provide so many square inches of, let's say, smart vents to match the square footage of the enclosure. And that's what's being proposed around the perimeter of the foundation wall of the boathouse. So we will have enough flood vents to meet the flood zone regulations.
They won't
But
have
so are you-
finished space, they won't have finished space below
Below
elevation
what,
11.
though? You're talking about pouring a slab,
Yep.
so there's going to be additional foundation on the slab, and the whole building is going to be raised above that additional slab, and there are going to be vents under the floor of the new building? Is that?
It wouldn't be flood vents under the floor. It would be the flood vents along the actual foundation wall. So I believe there's a total of 4 flood vents that are going to be put in strategically around the perimeter as required by FEMA. For instance, if you have 1,000 square feet of enclosure, and each smart vent provides 200 square feet of a flood vent opening, then we would need 5 flood vents. And that's what's being proposed by the architect for this particular building itself.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm still confused. You said you're installing a slab and putting flood vents in the foundation wall. A slab is a solid object, so where are the where's the foundation? On top of the slab? We don't have a drawing here, and that's part of the problem.
Well, it should have been in the RDA packet if you see. Towards the end of the RDA application packet, looking at it now, it says, if you look at the, let's see, sheet A1, and you look at the lower level, you'll see that the architect put in there 1 smart vent equals 200 square feet. And the area of the boathouse is 726 square feet. So it'll require 4 smart vents along the foundation wall. So obviously the foundation wall would have to be heightened as well once you put in the 12 inches of slab on top of the existing slab. But it's going to be cut into the new foundation wall going around the perimeter of the boathouse.
Yeah, sorry, we only had a file copy for that. We were not provided with additional copies for that, as required. So we have it, but the commission just hasn't seen it.
But the building department has to sign off
Well,
on all these.
right, ultimately,
these
the building
details, so-
department is gonna have to sign off on the flood zone compliance for the structure. Our
Correct.
concern, one, we wanna make sure, yes, it is flood compliant, but ultimately, the building code, that's up to the building commissioner. We just wanna make sure that what they're proposing is not gonna have an adverse impact to the resource areas that we're working around.
Okay, well, I can't make any sense of that right now, so, how shall we proceed here? There's the issue of, go ahead.
Is it possible to get the actual plans that we can take a look at and try to, continue this so we have some time to
Yeah.
make sense of exactly what's going on? Because,
Yep.
and then to maybe address any other issues that are with regard to debris and everything else that's, I just don't
So I
feel like I
think we-
fully understand it either,
Right.
if I'm being,
So you
to
can,
be honest.
we can request that the applicant continue to get more information, so we can have more information from the contractor regarding exactly what the erosion control will be. Give you a little bit more time if we could get more copies of the architectural drawings, because we didn't get extra copies of those, for the commission. That would be helpful.
So I'm sorry, I'm confused. So you do not have the architectural plans as part of the packet?
We got one. We did not get the copies as required for the commissioners for their packages.
This,
Okay.
this is what he's talking about. I don't see where the flood vents are shown here at all. There's nothing labeled.
Are you looking at sheet A1?
Let's see. I am looking at sheet A1.
Okay, so if we're looking at A1, and you look at the upper right-hand corner where it says lower level,
Yep,
and if you see that lower level, it talks about the existing slab elevation, storage slab to be at 3 feet 8 inches, the proposed storage slab to be 4 feet 8 inches. And then below that, you'll see one smart vet equals 200 square feet, and 726 square feet equals 4 smart vents. So that's what's required. The architect had did his calculations based on the square footage of the enclosure and came up with 726 square feet, which requires 4 smart vents, each smart vent yielding 200 square feet of opening allowance. You don't see that on that?
I do see that now that you pointed out, and then there are 4 things labeled SV,
Smart vent.
right? A little bit opaque, but okay. I see. And you're saying those are in the foundation, okay.
This is why I think it needs to have a notice of intent, so we can get the correct paperwork. I don't have it, Vivian doesn't have it, Severe doesn't have it. And, you know, this is kind of half-baked as far as I'm concerned. And that, to talk about the not erosion, but the debris flying in the harbor, there should be a plan there to put a 4 or 6 foot high snow fence or something of that nature to keep the
Yeah.
debris from going in the harbor. That all needs to be on a plan and done properly.
I agree.
This is no good.
So if we're gonna request a notice of intent for all these details, or can we just request all these details and proceed with the
You
RDA?
can request all these details and proceed with the RDA if you see fit. I'm trying to, want to understand what the notice of intent would provide you in addition to the things that you're asking here. Because we can still condition an RDA. And I agree, this is probably a little bit above and beyond now that we're getting into it. But I think what you're asking for, we could talk about putting construction fence, or a stake silt fence as a limit of work. I mean, I'm a little concerned about a stake silt fence being there too. But you could have more time to look at these plans if we continued for 2 weeks. I don't know what, at this point, requiring them to do a notice of intent instead would accomplish that we can't accomplish by just asking for a little bit more time and clarification on the plans.
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion that we continue this hearing until February 19th and request that the applicant provide all the additional details that we have discussed here, specifically details about how to address controlling debris on all sides of the new building, or on all sides of the site, and in more detail, construction plans addressing how flood compliance is being satisfied here.
I think it would be helpful if we're gonna be doing that to also get construction protocol. Where are the machines gonna be staged? How is this gonna actually be done?
Yeah.
So I'm adding what Amy just said to my motion.
And the architectural plans as well.
Yeah,
We need a complete set of those plans there, so we all have them.
right. And plans that we don't need a magnifying glass to read. So, there's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have a request for determination of applicability for 55 Sugar Hill Drive, map 88, parcel R49, for removing and rebuilding the previously permitted Muldoon Architect deck plans from 2021, constructing a retaining wall, stair platform, and walkway.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Jump right in, sure. Keith O'Donnell, property owner, resident here in Harwich. Thanks to the committee for reviewing our proposal. I know primary volunteer committee with the exception of Amy, so I really appreciate the time and the engagement. So did you guys have a chance to look at the property? I know that was staked out for you. I had my eye out, but I didn't see you. You snuck past me. So I just wanted to offer a few quick points, and Wesley's going to go into some of the particulars. The property that I bought is amazing, but it certainly can't come with a lot of problems. And I'm certainly resource constrained and working as best as possibly. I want to collaborate with the town in order to kind of protect my investment. The opening of Muddy Creek a couple years back has done wonders for the waterway. I know this committee is certainly aware of that. I'm sure that leading up to the execution of that project, there was feasibility studies undertaken by Chatham and Harwich in combination. And, along with some development partners and other agencies that were involved. And I'm sure that feasibility study outlined potential positive impacts and potential negative outcomes. I'm a big fan and beneficiary of the positive outcomes, but my property is definitely seeing a direct and negative impact to the increased tidal flow. The rate of erosion to the coastal bank of my property, it's increased significantly. And it was already, the southeast corner of my property is slowly going downhill towards Muddy Creek. And since the river's been opened, that is just more rapid. So I have some documentation to support that. I definitely want to make a long-term viable home on that spot, and I believe these steps will help me do that. Just up front, why build the wall? Really to protect and shore up that investment. And certainly with what I'm proposing here, I'm putting a lot more money into the house and surrounding area. Also asking for reasons of accessibility in the least impactful way. I can't really even walk around my house, hence the stairs that I want to replace. Those were existing, but they went away when the retaining wall was built. As I said, the southeast corner is ever slowly migrating down the hill. And glad to discuss any points in detail and appreciate the opportunity and consideration.
Thank you, Keith. Wesley Price, general contractor. Good evening. So the scope of the work for the project is a previously approved addition, removal of an addition of the house and then a rebuild. And this, what we're here in front of the board commission tonight to ask for is the retaining wall and the steps. We've actually eliminated the 81 square foot stone walkway from the plan. We're just going to leave the grass that's there. Keith doesn't want to he wants to minimize disturbance, and also the proposed mitigation of 3 to 1. We sort of wanted to cut that square footage down, so the elimination of that walkway hopefully will satisfy both of those for Keith as well as for the commission. So we're proposing to mitigate the stairs, which are approximately 24 square feet, and the stone wall, which is 60 square feet, approximately 60 square feet, for a total of 81 square feet. And to mitigate that, 84 square feet. So we'll be mitigating 252 square feet of the property. I sent to Amy an updated plan with the mitigation location marked out. And so I don't know if you have that in front of you where you can see the location of the proposed mitigation, or?
They don't have it with them here. They have the native, they have the original plan, so it's in the approximate location of the proposed native buffer strip.
Yep. Yep, and we are proposing the vegetative plants to be approximately 60 plants to be planted, 20 Juniperus horizontalis, of approximately 200 square feet of coverage, 20 Rudbeckia hirta, so black-eyed Susans, which is approximately 40 square feet of coverage, and then butterfly milkweed, Asclepias tuberosa, for about 30 square feet of coverage. So, if there's some other plants that the commission prefers to see there, we're happy to discuss that.
All set? Amy?
So those of you who've been to the site know that it's precarious around that corner there, so I completely understand your need and want for that block retaining wall, kind of a continuation of the type of wall that you have currently, as well as the need for a set of stairs to get down there. Great that you're not proposing any type of formal walking path. It's pretty flat, just Cape Cod grass there. I would suggest slightly different plantings, and just because I think that it's not ones that you would necessarily find there. They are native, but I don't think they're necessarily gonna help you in terms of your stability and whatnot there. So I would recommend, I could make some recommendations on some other ones. I don't think we have to go back and reinvent the wheel in terms of a planting plan. I figured we could have the conversation tonight. But things like potentially arrowwood, viburnum, as well as actually some clump grasses for a better root system in there. But I'm happy if anybody else has any ideas on how to stabilize kind of the embankment right at the top of the slope to this hill here. I would also suggest in the future not blowing leaves and putting landscape debris over the top of the bank, because that's just shading out any vegetation and increasing probability of erosion. And if you ever wanted to come back and discuss invasive removal on the banking, it's a huge project. But if you ever wanted to come back and talk about invasive removal and restoration of that planting for a more stable community, I'm always available to talk to you about that.
Thank you.
So I would recommend approval. I can work with them on a couple plant substitutions. I'd be interested to see what the commission has for substitutions as well, kind of in that corner area here. But I think some clump grasses, maybe a couple viburnums would give them the stability as well as kind of fit in more there. So I would, with those changes, I'd recommend approval with -3, because it's a buffer zone project.
Sophia?
I have no concerns. I unfortunately wasn't able to make it to the site, so I feel like I can't really weigh in, but I do agree that if you're looking to stabilize a slope, native grasses are the way to go. Maybe even a grow low sumac, something like that to really hold it in. But other than that, looks good. Thank you.
Vivian?
No questions. Good luck with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
From the looks of those contour lines there, I think I'd want to put a wall up too. It looks pretty steep.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to just define an area that I can maintain and assume some kind of a level area, and it's, they're all good problems. It's a great spot, and I want to be there for a long time.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I wish you luck.
Yeah.
So I have a question about what your plans are for, I guess I'd call it seaward from that side of the house facing the bank. There's on this plan that looks like there's nothing there. What I recall seeing there, and I don't recall the details, is a hedge that goes along the top of the bank, probably privet.
Yep.
So, yeah, well, I'll let you finish your point, but I.
Well,
I
I'm
have
just
some-
wondering about that whole area, because if there's nothing planted there to hold things together, that's just another source of problems for you.
Yeah,
And so,
I'm wondering, I don't want to build like a retaining wall all the way, right?
I'm not suggesting that, I'm
And
just
that
asking.
might be a tougher, but,
And
yeah.
planting a conventional lawn, you've heard business about fertilizer, et cetera,
Mm-hmm.
here, and planting a conventional lawn here is not a good idea at all, particularly since you're overlooking Muddy Creek there, and anything you put on there is gonna end up in the creek and then in Pleasant Bay. So, what are your plans?
So, well, first off, I don't fertilize. I'm a big fan of the zero-scape concept. The hedgerow bushes that you're talking about, I shared with Wesley a picture this morning from 2014, and then pictures from today. I've lost about an 8 to 10 foot section that just has folded down. And
Over the bank?
yeah. And so kind of southeast corner is where I want to put the wall. A little bit, I guess, westerly from that.
Right.
I'm just, the hillside is slowly but surely collapsing. And so for that, I'd be happy to put more native plantings to help grow a root system to support that bank.
And then, like, under the deck there is really what you're talking about, is that correct? Or-
Yeah, under the deck is where I've asked and requested to put in a retaining wall. And then moving west,
Seaward from there. Is that what you?
I don't know, but to me, it's
Yeah.
moving west. That's where the bushes have kind of folded over.
The privet hedge is going towards the staircase. It's going towards the staircase. The wall is like where your foundation,
Yeah.
the corner's compromised at this point.
Mhm.
What I'm asking about is the bit of land going towards the steps and towards the street from that corner. That land, which it's all privet along there, that stuff hasn't gone over the bank, I take it. I'm just wondering how you're stabilizing the rest of that, so you don't end up with more erosion problems there when we get an inch of rain in 2 hours or something.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that that's TBD, but certainly a major concern for me, and I'd be happy to work with the commission to have the best outcome here.
I think maybe Amy can give you some suggestions about what.
Yeah.
Look at it. It's really hard too, because, a rain event is problematic, but you have such a steep slope that it's undermining from the bottom and slowly crumbling away too. So it's not just top activities that are our problem here, but I could come out
Yeah.
anytime and take a look at it a little closer, and we could do a swale potentially
Yeah.
of some sort.
And another thing, Mr. Ketchum, is being creative on the drainage capabilities,
Yeah.
I grew up as a mason, and just finding creative ways to maybe deflect some of that water when
Yeah.
there's a big rain event.
Right.
I noticed when we had the 2 inches or an inch of snow the other night, all the melt coming off my roof, coming under the deck, and going down the hill, like I could disperse that in different directions.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have anything else. Anything further? Anything from anyone in the room? We have a motion.
I'll move that we approve the request for determination of applicability for 55 Sugar Hill Drive, map 88, parcel R49.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next, we have a request for a certificate of compliance for 123 Riverside Drive, map 4-A1, parcel A10, SE 32-2478, for pool, patio, and restoration landscaping. Do we have someone here, or do you want to just take it?
I can speak to it if there's nobody present. So this was a project several years ago that we had a lot of compliance issues with. A large portion of the 1 to 200 foot riverfront area was completely clear cut on this property. They had to do a lot of restoration plantings. It's taken a few years for the restoration plantings to be successful. And at this point, they've achieved close to their 90% survival. There's very distinct areas that have not taken well, and I've spoken with their restoration contractor, Davenport Landscapes, and we discussed the primarily reason they're not going is these are areas that were heavily planted with Wilbush blueberry, which rabbits really love. So we talked about, since that plant's not being successful there, and they're kind of very distinct, larger patches of replanting those this spring, and they're agreeable to that. I did notice that, so the property is not supposed to have any fertilization happening, and outside of the mitigation areas towards the house, it is clearly still being traditionally maintained. And I spoke with Davenport about that. Davenport is not the company that routinely does the routine landscaping. I think I was told it was Mitchell Landscaping. So what I would propose is that prior to the release of a certificate of compliance from our office, that we get a letter signed by the owner of the property as well as Mitchell Landscaping stating that they will not use any fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides within the 200-foot riverfront area here on the property, and that they also will cease, within the mitigation planting areas, they're doing a little bit of maintenance. They blew the leaves out of it. There's grass kind of in between the plants that they've mown. They shouldn't be touching any of that. That was all to be naturalized. So what I would propose is granting the certificate of compliance, having me hold it. I'll come up with a letter that they can sign outlining these things that they have to agree to. If they don't agree to them, then it doesn't get released and it gets back on an agenda.
Okay. Vivian?
Sounds good. Sounds like a plan. No questions?
Sounds good.
I agree.
I'll make a motion for the certificate of compliance for 123 Riverside Drive, map 4-A1, parcel A10, SE number 32-2478.
I'll second the motion, and add Amy's requirement that we get signed letters from the owner and the landscaper that they will not continue to apply any lawn treatments within the 200-foot riverfront boundary. Do you accept that?
Yes, I do.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0. Now we have a request for certificates, for a certificate of compliance for 25 Harbor Way, map 1-G1, parcel 3, SE 32-2208, to raise and rebuild an existing dwelling.
This one's easy. We've inspected the property and found it to be in compliance, and we recommend certificate of compliance.
Any discussion? I'll move that we approve the certificate of compliance for 25 Harbor Way, map 1-G1, parcel 3, SE 32-2208.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0. Okay. Now, we have 3 items under discussion and possible vote. The first is a violation at 29 Sugar Hill Drive concerning a fence and an enclosed porch. evening.
Yeah, if you just come up and introduce yourselves, and either I can start, or you can.
Burkhardt?
And Kelly as well.
Robert and Kelly.
Property owners, I take it?
Yes.
So it came to our attention roughly a month ago, that they had installed a fence and, to kind of keep your dogs in. So they abut the marsh abutting Muddy Creek. And, when I went out to the property, they do have a very rudimentary kind of snow fence that separates their property area from the marsh area. And then extending from that area towards their house, they have really a 2-foot high, 2.5-foot high, picket type fence to help enclose the yard for their couple small dogs.
Yep.
So, yes, this fence is technically within, Conservation Commission's jurisdiction. Should have been reviewed by the commission, and, yeah. And there's also what used to be a deck that is now an enclosed porch that does not have permits. That was done at the time of COVID. So now's your opportunity to talk and tell us about the work, and we'll go from there.
Okay, we hired someone to enclose our deck, and I just assumed he pulled the permit for it, because I paid him to build it, and it's not my area of expertise. So he started it, and I left in the morning for work, and he wasn't there, and then when I get back from work, he's gone. So I just assumed he pulled a permit for it, and we found out after and pulled a permit for it, and paid double the fee.
The application.
Yeah, double the application fee, but then never finalized it. So then, I don't know, did we pull it again?
I don't know if you
Second
did,
time?
but it would have had to have gotten sign off from my department, which it didn't, because it would have been an action that required review by the Conservation Commission.
Okay. Yeah, so that's,
So it was left in limbo, pretty
Right.
much, is
Yeah.
what happened.
right. So that's what happened.
It is within a 50-foot no disturb zone. It's a second story, it was a second story deck that is now a enclosed porch,
It's a, yeah, three-season sunroom.
season room, yep.
Yep.
Did the original second-story deck have a permit?
I think it was previous owners, and it was older. I don't know how long it existed. I'd been to that property during the Muddy Creek study that we were just talking about, and I recall the deck being there at the time. So, I guess, this is a chance for the commission to talk and say how we had to move forward. They've been very workable, and amenable to doing what they need to do, whether it be augment or remove the fence,
Yep.
and file appropriately for the room. Problem is, as I explained, that we have a 50-foot no disturb zone, so, and it says any new structure or addition, and this is considered a new structure, and we technically don't allow those. That being said, you can grant variances, but it would have to be a filing in front of the Conservation Commission in order to do so, with mitigation. I don't see myself having gone to the site. It's second story. It's not having a more adverse impact than the deck had to begin with, but is it also setting a bad precedent of kind of allowing more construction close,
Encroachment.
and stuff too? So, and then in terms of so if you have any questions in terms of the fence or the enclosure, or suggestions on how to move forward, I would at least recommend that they move forward with a notice of you can decide whether it's an RDA or a notice of intent for the porch to see it, or for the three-season room, to see if they can get it. And then, but the fence is a question. I also am curious about the fence, if it's solely on your property, or if it has gone on to the neighbor's property as well.
on to our other neighbor?
On the
On-
other side of Nickerson Way. Because you own to the middle of that, right?
Right.
There's a tree right there in the middle of it.
Okay,
So we just went around the tree.
okay.
The bush, yeah.
That's something we could look at a little bit more in depth, but
So like the picket fence is all,
It's temporary.
yeah, it's just like poles that are put in the ground, so you pick up the pole and take the fence. It's got two little loops in it. So if a big dog was to jump on it, it would fall over, but these are little dogs.
Papillons.
So it's just to keep them in getting, so they can run around for a little bit and get some exercise and try to keep,
They're high energy.
yeah. So I could actually wrap up all that fence in 3 hours. I could take it all down. I didn't make anything permanent. It's just like, the wooden slat fence. Did you guys make a site visit?
Yeah.
Okay, so you saw it. So
so.
I'll do what I have to do with the fence. I can pull it back. I could get rid of it,
Whatever Amy suggests.
Yeah. whatever
Well,
you
it's
guys
what you
suggest.
folks feel.
But,
I do
so-
see a difference between this type of fence, how rudimentary this is, and say, a 6-foot stockade fence that's a complete block, because, any wildlife's gonna jump over or under this thing. So potentially with permit, I could see potentially allowing it with the condition of documenting how it is and saying this is how it has to stay. Can't be anything more substantial with, or moving it, getting it a little bit farther away maybe from the marsh or something, but also, we do consider fences structures, and we say no new structures in the 0 to 50, so. But I do think there's a difference between this fence that you literally
It's
can pop out and what some people would construe as a fence of a 6-foot stockade that's almost, impenetrable, so.
And it's a snow fence that's along
Right.
the marsh.
Snow
So the
fence
marsh
and
is
everything.
able to
Yeah.
grow up and through, and it's actually encroaching now into our property, the marsh.
Right.
would-
In
Yeah.
other words, Phragmites, is that what? is
They have a
that
little bit of,
Phragmites
they have a
there?
few things, yeah, they have a few different species there. If anything, I would think maybe moving that fence inland a little bit, so it's not in the
The
marsh.
snow
but-
fence?
Yeah, but with that, so it's what, would application be amenable to you, or I also don't wanna send them down a path where they're not gonna be potentially successful, so you're not gonna say you're gonna approve something tonight, but do you have any guidance for them?
It says here it's partially the addition or the deck that's been enclosed is within the 50-foot buffer zone. How much is it in? Partially,
It's
it's
hard to
kind of
tell,
vague.
it's hard to tell exactly on the
Yeah.
site plan, I think the majority of it is.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those sticky wicket things, Where's the builder that did it?
Yeah,
I'd
I
like
was
to
gonna
have
ask
him
that
here.
question.
Find out
Bob
why he didn't pull a
Chambers.
permit.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Bob Chambers, yeah.
Have you
Yeah.
been in touch with him?
He's in Brewster. He's been working this area for a long time. He worked on our neighbor's house
Should know better
and,
than if he's worked in that area for a long time,
I'm sorry?
So he should know better,
Right.
Mm.
Yep.
Any competent builder or contractor is first thing he's gonna do is go up here and get a building permit.
Correct. Right.
I don't know, is this something we would have passed if it hadn't been, caught, so to speak?
It's
I don't
tough
know.
because it's one of those ones where it's literally in the same footprint of an existing second-story deck.
Yeah,
They
Right.
didn't expand off of it.
yeah.
It was an existing structure, but our language does say new buildings or additions prohibited.
And unfortunately,
So this could have been one where you could have permitted it with mitigation. Or you could have said no. It's a tough one.
yes, it is. I feel bad for you folks, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it was during COVID, and it just seemed like it was a good decision at the time. We didn't know. It allowed us some separation from each other in the house, for sure. So,
Which was essential during COVID.
it was, we all had a bout of COVID during
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah.
And it did allow for separation, which was, we had our daughter living with us at the time. She was immunocompromised, so it really helped in that regard.
Should we have some sort of plan showing exactly how much this new construction?
We
new
could
ed-
see about a site, if they have an existing site plan that would show at least the old deck. I mean, I'll look and see what their building permit application showed, because the application should have had something. And I don't have it here in front of me.
You know,
But
if it's-
Aren't you talking about a plan that shows us where the 50-foot
Yes.
line is?
Yeah, there, I can look and see if there's a
Yeah.
site plan.
If
I
it's
just
a
don't have it with me.
The-
situation where it's only a few square feet or something, I wouldn't have a problem, but
No,
they
it's-
find out half the thing is in the 50-foot buffer zone, that's a different story.
It's more than half, if not all.
Really?
So the house was built in, I think it got the certificate of occupancy in 1976, and the deck was included
Right,
in
so that
that?
was pre-DEP,
Right.
Wetlands Protection Act
Oh,
regulations, which
Yeah.
is good, if the deck was there then, but, I mean, I knew the deck was there previously.
Yeah.
We have plans that reflect that the deck was there previously.
so we
Right.
didn't change anything
Right,
with
no,
regard to the footprint of the deck.
Right. So,
Nothing was changed there.
I don't have it with me, but,
Well, let's see what the rest
Yeah.
of the commission has to say here.
I think, I mean, I'm the rookie here, but it sounds like if there was a pre-existing deck there, the chances are you would have been approved for the enclosure, right? They would have been well, I would like to think maybe more likely
2 or
than
3
not.
years ago, I'm not sure about it.
yeah.
Well, I should speak for myself then. If I was
Thank
sitting
you.
here, I would have approved it, if it was already existing, because you're not encroaching. If there's any damage, it's already done, right? The thing is already there. So that's really all I have to say about that. As far as the dogs are concerned, I mean, I should probably recuse myself, you know, I'm a dog owner. I know you have to keep them contained, but the fence is temporary, because we were there, we saw it.
Right.
But I would defer to the experts about what you can do to
Mhm.
maybe
Shrink it.
bring it in a little closer, or,
Sure.
you know, that's pretty much all I got.
I don't have a problem with either of the scenarios. I feel like that if we say, yes, we set precedent, like there has to be room for nuance, like there's nothing that could have, I think the Three Seasons room underneath the second floor deck is just a reasonable.
On top of it.
Yeah.
Right, okay. I think, yes, I would say that that is a acceptable structure. I don't know about precedent, I'm the second rookie, but like, there has to be room for, I don't know. That, and then as far as the fence goes, it just sounds temporary. It's like, is it more of an accessory than a structure? Like, they're just keeping
Yeah.
their dogs safe living where they are. It's not adding, if it's not, you know, not allowing wildlife to do their thing, then I have no objection to it. So that's
So, with the fence, isn't the whole point of restrictions on fencing in an area like this, wildlife passage?
Correct.
So, I mean, you can just try to be completely literal about the regulations and consider it a structure, but the more substantive issue is wildlife passage, so, I don't know where to come down on that here. I mean, you just said it's not a problem with
I do have a
wildlife.
suggestion on how to handle it,
And
but I
just-
wanted you all to speak.
And calling it a temporary fence doesn't address the business about wildlife passage, because it's no good to you if you're taking it out all the time.
We have
You
a-
want to let your dogs out the door and let them do their business,
Mhm.
so you don't have to take them for a walk 5 times a day. I get that,
Oh, I do that anyway.
Yeah.
right? But, so, go ahead, Amy.
My suggestion is that you have them file an RDA. I'm pretty sure we have a plan that at least shows the location of the deck as, in relative to the wetlands. And that, on that, we sketch in where the fence is.
Mhm.
Instead of keeping, to make it a little bit better, because you'd had to have mitigated you probably would have had to mitigate it at some level for the fence and/or the structure, is that I come out to the site, we look at a reasonable place to move the fence in a little bit and have you plant native, and this is more towards the marsh side, augment what's already coming in there with additional native plants. Have you come in with that proposal as an RDA.
What's an RDA?
It's a request for determination of applicability. It's our middle filing.
Mm-hmm.
And had the enclosed porch would have had to at least come in front of us as that too. We're gonna try to wrap both things together.
Okay.
That is my suggestion.
That sounds good.
Sounds reasonable to me.
I like the mitigation aspect. I mean, even if you had come in and if, like, I would have been in favor of it, I think the mitigation would have been something that we would have asked for, so I think that sounds good.
Right, would you guys have a recommendation of, you said natural plantings?
We'll talk about it.
Okay.
So I wanted to see if the commission was amenable to that. And I can reach out via email or call later this week if everybody's in agreement about how to proceed. I can come out and take a look and see where we can move things in a little bit.
Okay.
But still. And then probably make something clear that, so this fence, as I said, it's not the same as other fences. So we could document the fence that's there
Mhm.
and say, you know, you can't do more than this.
Right.
You can't put anything more substantive up. The fence is 2.5 feet tall. On the snow fence is taller, but it's more of a wire fence. It's not solid.
Rabbits pass through it.
I'm just gonna
It's
say,
not an impediment.
we have
this one.
rabbits, we have moles, we have chipmunks, we have squirrels, we have coyotes,
Yeah.
we have foxes, we have, I mean, what else is there?
Yeah.
The big giant little marsh rats. We've seen them crawl through our yard. So they get around the fence.
You probably have otter, yeah.
I found a crab one time in my yard, a crab,
I'm sure a bird
Alive. No, he,
dropped it, yeah.
maybe.
alive, crawled up from the marsh.
Oh, wow,
Yep. Ducks.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if the commission's amenable to that, I'm happy to work with the Burkharts to formally get approval for you.
Thank you, Amy.
Now, is there gonna be a plan done?
We're gonna
Showing
see what we
the-
have,
so
what we have to work on
You might have something in the
existing.
files?
Yeah,
Okay.
and then ideally, the builder would have at least given an architectural rendering, so we'll see what we've got,
Okay,
okay?
sounds reasonable.
Okay?
So do we?
You don't need a motion. Are you in agreement?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
I'll be in touch before the end of the week.
Thank
you,
you very
Amy.
much, guys.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you. Have a good night.
Have a good evening. Okay, next we have discussion and possible vote for a violation at 54 Main Street Extension for clearing of all vegetation, grading, and addition of hardening within riverfront area.
Good evening. I'm Renato Carnero, I'm the owner.
Good evening.
So, do you want me to give a
Yes.
little background?
Yeah.
So, we were made aware of some clearing activities on this piece of land in northwest Harwich. Sorry, my voice is going. I was sick and it's still not back. So I'm trying, but it's going. We were made aware of the clearing. I went out to the property. Yourself and your workers were on the property. It's a single-family home property with a small ranch on it. It is on the upper reaches of what is known and mapped as Swan Pond River, also called Smelt Creek. So on the west side of the property, it actually abuts town property, and then about 30, 40 feet into town property is a ditch that is recognized as this creek. So it is known as a river because, meaning it runs on a constant basis, according to USGS. It doesn't, most likely it does not. However, it is at least an intermittent stream, so it falls within Rivers Act protection. So any activity on this lot should have gotten approval from the Conservation Commission to do. The lot was stripped and graded and some hardening put down. We stopped the work and they've abided by the stop work order. I put you in touch with a couple folks, I know at least one came out.
Yep.
And I did afterwards recall that Moran Engineering was working with the neighbor on the other side of the creek.
Yep.
So I am, and to know about the same thing, is it an intermittent stream that only flows during big rain events or whatnot, or is it truly a perennial stream that runs consistently? I don't believe it is, but it's your burden, it's the burdens of the owners to prove otherwise. So I'm curious where you've gotten with that, and if you want to tell the commission a little bit about why you did this and what your plans are, that would be helpful.
Yeah, so I called Bob, I
Bob
figured
Perry,
Bob
Cape Cod
Perry,
Engineering.
and then he nicely went over there with me, and he dug and say, oh, doesn't seem even has pines there, and the vegetation, some is like, he said conservation, but some are not, so it could be and could not be. And he dug deep. He said that thing is being dug by hand in 1800s, like to do
You might know.
cranberry bogs, whatever, but I don't know. And then the neighbor came over, Moniz,
Yes,
the
Ken
neighbor,
Moniz.
and he asked, oh, what's going on? And then he told me he's using Moran Engineering to prove that that's not a river because you want to build a garage or something.
Right.
And then Perry said, oh, you should use Moran since he's already halfway done with the... So I called Moran, and then he said, yeah, now I'm working on it. I got to talk to Amy, see how it's for that project. After he's finished with that project, he can take mine. So,
Okay.
but I called him like 2 weeks after, and I left a message. He never called me back, so...
So how we deal with this kind of really,
Because,
whether it's perennial or intermittent is gonna play a big role on what and how much that you might have to put back on this property, because you're certainly within 100 feet, which would be if it's an intermittent, stream that runs sometime, maybe that's part of your property. But if it's 200 feet from that ditch, it's pretty much the whole thing. So we can't, unfortunately, we can't really do too much until we know.
yeah, I look it up in the app that I can show the
Yeah.
lot lines and I walk through. Seems like that fence there,
Yeah.
my lot lines go over the fence.
Oh,
Seems, because I see some plants planted in line there.
yeah.
I think that's the lot line,
Huh.
and the fence is inside. So I thought that fence is the buffer zone, because I look it up on the stream, that the river there is not a river. It's not a river, because no. And then in the front of the property is 50 feet from the river to the property line. In the rear is like 77 feet. I kind of measure on the,
Okay.
I printed too, I don't know if you...
I'd like to see it, yeah.
Mm.
That'd be helpful.
And then I follow the stream, and it goes all the way to
Oh, yeah, it goes all the way up.
Great Western, right?
Yeah, well, it goes down to Great Western,
So
but,
by Great Western, Ashore is 20 feet off, And my property is 50 feet. By Shore is
Yeah.
20 feet
right,
off the, so I don't see.
yep.
Well, we have to get a surveyed plan, and the
Yeah.
engineer will do the surveyed plan, and we can't, I mean, he has to define the borders of the intermittent stream, if that's what it is, and so
Yep.
the question is 100 feet from where, so we have to have that, and we can't really have a,
Right, it's the
big
purpose of
conversation.
having him come in tonight was really a show cause meeting,
Yeah.
to start this conversation with you. Didn't know how long it was gonna take to get a plan or somebody out there, so we wanted to schedule this. I would recommend we, in the next couple weeks, try to get an answer, and I can call Dan,
Yeah.
Proto as well to see
Or
where
I
he's
can,
at.
or I can follow the and get somebody else from the list you gave me, you know.
Well, and I think I'd like to come out, just, I'm not a surveyor, but I'm probably gonna come out another time and
Yeah.
I'll arrange it with you. I'd like, the day that I was out there, I wasn't really equipped to go tramping through everything. Got a little bit more of a hold on. I don't believe that it is a perennial stream
It's
there.
not.
But the problem is all the maps say it is, so we gotta prove it's not.
Yeah.
Because I also don't want to have you have to restore more than you necessarily might have to do legally.
Yeah.
Is this the little house that's on the north side of
Yeah.
Main Street Extension? Used to be
It's right on
Kendall?
the curve.
Used to be Kendall's house.
Yeah.
Ronnie Kendall owned it
Yeah.
at one time.
Yeah.
I've been familiar with that road, the Main Street Extension. My friends, back when we were kids in the 50s, they had a camp up on Bassett's Pond, and we used to go through there all the time. I have never seen water on the north side of that road. On the south side, there was in the ditches because they used the cranberry bogs, but I've never seen water in that ditch from the Main Street Extension all the way up to the old bog that was up behind the Fish and Game Club. That's why that ditch was
Yeah.
man-made.
Yeah.
Drain that bog, but they abandoned that bog back, I don't know, God, probably the turn of the century.
Yeah.
And I've never seen water in it.
So there's a pond on
Way
the
up.
north
yeah.
side of Route 6, which
Right.
maps anyway show
But
that Swan Pond
that
River draining
ditch
that
doesn't
pond.
touch that pond. It
There
goes to-
is
it goes
a
to the
hydric,
eastern.
there is supposedly what we call a hydric connection to a small pond farther up
Yes,
north.
up inside that old cranberry bog, there's a mud hole, but
Right.
that water's never been in that ditch that I've
Right.
seen, and that's since the mid-50s. And I think I'll pull up some documentation and stuff, and there's stuff out there that kind of prove his case.
Yeah.
Because that's a man-made thing, I believe, from that road on up, they dug that too. Originally, there was an interesting thing, there was an investment group that built that bog. Tim Lynch, who was a school teacher in Harwich for many years, he did a lot of research, he lived up there on the pond, Conio's Pond up there. And they dug, this is behind that, where that stable is now,
Yeah.
they dug a big, huge trench
Yep.
from that pond down into that, to make that cranberry bog, but they
Yeah.
messed up and they got the elevations wrong and they were a foot out of grade.
I heard about that.
Yeah, and so that's why they abandoned that whole operation. So all those ditches and they were all dug by hand, man-made.
Yeah, that's what Bob Perry told me.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to do.
Well, let's continue, I think, Dan Croto had already done the work for Mr. Moniz. There's no reason, if you obviously have to contract with him.
Yeah.
But if he's done the work, then we can see how close he is. He's filing a permit for his neighbor. His neighbor wants to do a garage, potentially, outside 100 feet. So I told Mr. Moniz it would be in his interest to get a river study done, because if it's only an intermittent stream, if he can build his garage outside the 100-foot, he doesn't have to come to conservation. So I would say let's take the next 2 weeks, try to pin down when this can be ready. I'll come out again
Yep.
and do some rudimentary measurements of my own as well, and we'll go from there. If it is 100 feet, then once we know where that is exactly, then we can have a better understanding of what you can and can't do,
Sounds good.
okay?
Give me a call when you wanna go there. I'll go with you.
Yeah, it'll probably be beginning of next week. I'll
Sounds
give
good.
you a call or an email.
All right, thank you.
Do you have any more questions for now?
I don't.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you. Yep.
So I'll put it tentatively for an update on the next agenda. See how
Okay.
it goes.
So number 3, under discussion and possible vote, accept sand nourishment donation from 29 Walther Road to be placed on town property of 23 Walther Road.
So I know the owner, Allison Walsh, is online. I wanted to include in this, there's something else that has come up since then in regards to this property, and since it's on the agenda, I'm hoping we can dovetail it. So 29 Walther Road is an existing house that's, you've permitted to be demoed and rebuilt farther from the bank. It's the one that has a steel bulkhead. When they dig their foundation hole for their new house, it's gonna be bigger than what they have, so they're gonna have excess sand. And provided that it is clean material, they're gonna put some, and I'll take a look at it. They're gonna put some in front of their wall above mean high water, but they're gonna have excess, and they would be glad to donate it and throw it over on the town property next door, which is 23 Walther, where we've experienced some erosion, because we're kind of in between two hard solutions there. So I would recommend that you say yes, that you, because it is your land, so you technically have to accept the donation of the sand there. Second part is that the integrity of the wall is kind of in question. So in order to, they have to do some what we call exploratory borings, and look behind the wall and get a look into the wall to see if, one, how far down it goes, how far inland it goes, if some of the sheeting is more just kind of superficial, or if it's really very structural. So they need to do a little digging behind the wall, between the house and the wall, where it's kind of beach grass. It's all gonna be restored anyways. So I would like to let them do that administratively and normally I would just grant administrative reviews, but being in a precarious space there, before I did an admin review, I wanted you to give me your blessing to go forward in that way. They'll be able to tell whether they can shore up the structure, whether they may have to be looking at a new thing going forward. But we don't know until you get a machine in there and start digging, so.
Machine, this isn't just
No, we've been-
doing a bore.
Well, some of it's handwork, but not all of it,
They'll be using an excavator or a backhoe, a small one probably,
yeah.
so.
And, I do believe, I don't know if she's available, but I do believe Allison Walsh, the owner, is available if you have any questions.
I think that's a reasonable thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, you can see where it's compromised between their wall and Jenkins.
Yeah.
I saw it when the storm hit, because I was down there,
Yeah, well, yeah, we had a,
so.
oh, there's Allison.
Yep, here I am.
How are ya? So.
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks. So I was just, we talked about putting excess sand, some on the town beach, and we were just talking about some of the kind of exploratory digging that you've got to do in order to check on the structural integrity of your seawall, if you wanted to add anything.
I don't have too much to add. Mark Burgess really knows most about this, and he's just worried about, I guess what you said, the integrity of the wall.
Yep, yep.
So,
So, yeah, I just asked the commission, well, one, if you would accept the sand donation, provided I look at the quality of the sand and approve it to be going on. I see no reason why it's not gonna be good sand to go on the beach there.
They're gonna rip out the foundation of that house that they're gonna do?
Allison, are you
Yes.
checking out the foundation of your old house?
yes, it's gone.
Okay. I haven't been out there in a little bit. Well,
One thing I would be wary of, or make sure you're looking at close, is whether little bits and pieces of concrete, if they tear a foundation out, there's always a million
Yeah.
pieces of concrete, make sure that doesn't get on the beach.
yeah, we can definitely make sure that doesn't happen. And I think a lot of the sand that we're talking about is gonna be, because if the new foundation is actually landward of where the old one was, so most of that sand's gonna be from virgin area.
Sure, yeah. Particle size should be the same as the beach, because that's where it came from originally.
Right.
So,
We'll
Yeah.
definitely have it checked before it goes on the beach.
That's fine.
So we need to vote to accept the sand donation, right?
Yep, and you can just tell me if you're okay with the admin review for the wall inspection.
Let's do the sand donation thing
All right,
first.
I'll make a motion, we accept the sand nourishment donation from 29 Walther Road to be placed on town property of 23 Walther Road.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0. Thank you. So the other one is big behind, and we don't need to vote on that.
You don't need to vote as long as you're okay with me handling it administratively with the Walshes and Mr. Burgess.
I am.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. I will be in touch later this week, Allison, with yourselves and Mr. Burgess about that.
Okay, great, wonderful. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we have minutes from the 2 January meetings, one of which was very
The
brief.
meeting, not meeting.
Not the unmeeting meeting.
That's right.
I don't have any comments on it.
No, neither.
No comments.
Sounds like a motion, John.
Oh, I'll make the motion. What the heck?
Go ahead,
I
John.
move we approve the minutes from January 8th, 2025 and January 22nd, 2025.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0.
All right, we got a mediocre-sized meeting next meeting. A couple of these trickled over, and then we have a couple new filings. I also hope to have the Herring River study update for you on the next meeting.
Are you gonna want me to zoom in from cyberspace, or are we?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll ask Mark, but can the other three of you make the meeting on the 19th?
Yep.
I'll check with Mark, but we
You can let me
shouldn't
know
need it.
anyway, it's not like I'm going
Right.
completely off the grid, I'll be checking
No,
email.
but it could be like midnight there.
Probably just getting warmed up at that point. No, I'm kidding. I also am
Are
conscious
you
of.
really?
No, but
Is
I'm
that how
also
they do it in
conscious
Dublin?
I'm also conscious of the fact that whatever that Harbor Road one was, I was like, push it on, and then to not be here, you know what I mean? So,
That's true, too. We'd have to, well, Mark could technically vote, because he only missed one hearing on it,
okay,
so we'll see what
Okay.
happens.
all right.
Okay, well, the other thing about the next meeting is the commissioners are invited on the day before, the 18th, right?
Oh,
To-
right.
To go with Tom Evans to do a tour of the new Colebrook area.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'll do that.
3 in the afternoon on the
So-
18th.
We could either do site visits before that, not after, because it's gonna be getting darker, but 3 o'clock at the Coldbrook Preserve
3 o'clock?
on the 19th.
On the 18th?
Oh, sorry,
18th. It's the
18th, because
18th,
it's the
yes.
Tuesday,
Okay.
it's site visits.
Yep.
We only have 2 new sites, so I guess if anybody wants to do site visits, we could go at 2.
Does President's Day not push the meeting? No, obviously.
That's a good question. I will double check. I think we vetted all that, but I will double check. President's Day impact. So the select board and CPC are also invited.
Yeah.
So it won't be just the Conservation Commission, there's a couple boards that are invited for their walkthrough.
Yeah,
President's Day
CPC
impact.
anyway, and the select board, right?
I will, well, it's just a site visit. I don't have to advertise it as an agenda, so it's one of those exempt things. It's like I don't have to advertise site visits.
Right.
Can't
2?
wait to see it next September after it's had a growing season.
I can't wait to see it in
All
the
the-
spring when everything starts leafing out,
Yeah,
too.
It's gonna be interesting. Nice.
Similar, we got the request for proposals for design of a new culvert underneath Bank Street, a new fishway, Nature Lake Fishway underneath Bank Street to
Yeah.
go up to Grass Pond. We got grant funding, 200,000 for it.
Oh, yeah.
So we are putting out that request for proposals
What kind of culvert is
shortly.
it gonna be? A concrete box culvert or?
That's still, that's
Up
up
in-
for debate,
Uh-huh.
depending on the design. We want the fishway to be a nature-like kind of steps,
Mhm.
boulders, fishway to get up to elevation, so that the eels and potentially herring can get back up there like they used to.
There's not much of an elevation difference there,
There is.
there is.
Not right at the road, so under
Oh.
the road,
Yeah.
go under, it's flat on the other side. Once you get to, there's a berm, there's an earthen berm on the west side of Bank Street, 30 feet inland.
Oh, really? I did not know
Um,
that one. Huh.
It's gotta be 6 feet tall.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how Senate used to hold the water.
So there was another flume up there?
There's a flume.
Oh, really?
Yep. It's on private property. The
Yeah.
owners are amenable to
Yeah.
this. We've been looking for, doing studies for the past 2 years on water levels because we don't wanna also drop the water level down too low.
I was just gonna ask that.
So we have to get a handle on the amount of flow that's coming into the
Right.
system too. So the design, the design will be impacted on that.
Huh, interesting.
So, I mean, we really kind of want to look at the whole thing. Tuesday, weather permitting, and right now it's looking iffy, for next week, we're gonna have a field day at Thompson's Field if anybody wants to come and do a little bit of manual labor, cutting and pile burning, weather permitting.
Should we bring marshmallows?
Bring whatever food you want,
Make sure there's no poison ivy in your piles.
not there,
If you've got
not on the
marshmallows.
north
Poison
side,
ivy marshmallows, yeah.
on the
that
north
sounds-
side.
Yeah.
Can't think of anything else pressing
So-
at the moment.
Wayne, you
Yes.
were asking about the culvert
Yes.
for that. Do you, what's your concern? You have an opinion about,
Well, I
A
was
right way
just
and a
curious
wrong
of what
way?
the cheap way to do it is to put in corrugated steel or something like that. But that has a lifespan. The box culverts that are made out of concrete would probably be there for 100 years. You know what I mean? I'm
That's
just,
generally the idea, is an open
yeah,
concept with some wing walls.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
That's,
Especially on a highway like that, I mean, you get a lot of truck traffic there.
that's in theory what we want, but we have to look at
Yeah, oh, I'm sure.
things.
It's all about money.
Not necessarily money, because so ideally, we got 100% funding for design. So,
But we designing what? We don't know yet.
right, we don't know yet, and then permitting, but then this same, if we are successful with this Natural Resource Conservation Service, depending on the fate of their funding, because they're federal, with USDA, would pay for 75% of construction costs. And we could still look at state grants, just not federal, for the remainder.
Any estimate on total cost of this project? You're getting 200,000 just to do the planning and the engineering?
Between
Then-
1 and 2.
What, between 1 and 2 million?
Yeah,
Good God almighty.
depending on the structure, yeah,
Yeah.
so. Okay,
Million isn't what it used to be, is it?
Sure isn't.
all right.
All right, well, good times had by all. I want to make a motion to adjourn this meeting on February 5th of the Harwich Conservation Commission.
I will second that.
All those in favor? Oh, John, that's your job.
whatever, all those in favor?
You would hang out
Everybody said aye.
for 2 minutes.
We did.
I need